Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here with my review of Uchu Sentai Kyuranger episode 34. I quite enjoyed this episode because it was Champ focused, and Champ is one of my favorites in this series, and it was equal parts like kind of a decent character story and also like some amusing funny stuff. Because you kind of started off with the tale of two champs, because they're like, oh no, the generals have an evil champ there, they're controlling him because they captured him in the past, but then like Wrestler Champ shows up, and there was a really funny bit around the fact that Wrestler Champ was obviously Champ, but he was doing a really bad job of pretending he wasn't Champ because he kept like referring to himself as Champ but then would backpedal. And like everybody but Garu knew it. Like I like how they're like, that's Champ, right? Yeah, that's Champ. And then I found that to be honestly really amusing, between, like I said, him messing up and then everyone just obviously knowing it's Champ except Garu, and like him believing everything so easily, and then Kotaro like just calling Garu an idiot. And then like right after that, Raptor said like, you know, I expected this of Garu, but I didn't know Stinger could be so dumb, because Stinger, you know, decided to play along to get the story out of him. But so I thought that was all pretty amusing, and I like the way this story went, because they very easily could have, excuse me, gone with Champ got kidnapped at some point and is now under their control, and I felt like that would have been not only cliche, but we just did Naga storyline like that. So I like that it was twisted on like the norm, where it's like, okay, this is actually just a different model of Champ because we found out that Champ was a Dark Matter bot. And then you had Champ sort of having discovered that in the past, feeling he wasn't worthy of being a Kyuranger, which kind of made sense because he's always been kind of about justice, and to find that out, but also seemed kind of contrived, but it worked for him. And I actually really liked the wrestler costume. I almost wish that it was some sort of power-up that had to do with a Kyutama, because even though I don't know if we'll ever see it again, maybe one more time, but I like the idea of people like Naga and him getting like little mini power-ups, because, you know, Red always gets the most, and that usually doesn't bother me because it's marketing, I totally get it, but like, Lucky's got the Pegasus thing, the Sun and Moon thing, and then Shishi Red Orion, and I just thought it would be neat if Naga had Hibi Sky Metal, and then Champ had this wrestling outfit to use that was somehow tied to a Kyutama, just because it looks kind of fit. Like, it's definitely got like the mask, like, you know, homemade vibe, but it also looks like a power-up for me. I thought it was cool, and it makes sense for his character. But regardless of if we ever see it again, even if it's a gag, I thought it was cool to do. But it would be neat to see the power-up. Side note that really has nothing to do with this episode other than it's related to Kyuranger. I kind of hate that we've never seen the Pegasus Armor again. It's not the greatest thing, but I like the look of it like 10 times more than the Sun and Moon head things. Like, I like the way those powers kind of work, and I actually really like the Kyutama toy for it, but I thought the Pegasus Armor was cooler looking, even though when they zoomed in it showed how cheaply made it was. But maybe it's because their prop was so bad, but I don't know. I was just kind of disappointed we haven't seen that again. I will probably see it either never or like one more time. I don't know. It's just been forever. But regardless, there was like a rant about power-ups. I liked that. They explained that, like, Champ he didn't encounter the doctor that made him, but, like, he basically encountered his notes. And it was weird. Maybe this will be, when we get the inevitable, you know, follow-up to this storyline, we'll probably get more explanation on that, possibly see the doctor again in a flashback or whatever. But it was weird that they're like, well, he didn't run into him, but they wanted to make it clear that he was alive during way long ago because he keeps replacing himself with cybernetic parts. He's like a dread doctor. Which, I don't know why they needed to do that if he didn't meet him. Like, if they had a flashback of him meeting him way back when, it would have made sense. But because he didn't, there's really no need for it. Like, I would have been fine, basically, with what I'm trying to say is, because Champ basically has just traveled to the future by just existing because he's a robot, I think it would have made sense to just explain that he waited for the doctor to come into being, if that makes any sense. Especially since he didn't actually meet him in the past. But I guess because he could have been working with Dark Matter at any point, because they've been ruling a long time. I don't know. It just seemed weird to clarify something that they didn't need to do. But yeah, he did find out he was Dark Matter via his notes, and he's going a little bit crazy. Like, he'll have these little malfunction moments. It doesn't seem to be like, oh, I'm suddenly evil Dark Matter now. Just kind of more of an out-of-control mode. And that's still ongoing, and Stinger and Garu haven't shared it with anyone, so I'm sure that'll be touched upon. I'm fine with that. I like that, again, that it sets up seeds for later storylines. I just hope that that particular storyline doesn't stretch out too long. I do like that Garu was a little bit more involved in something, because I think I've talked about this before, but I think Garu is the weakest character link in Kyuranger. Not like I hate him, but I mean in terms of I think he's gotten the least focus. And a lot of people always bring up how little focus Raptor and Hammy have gotten, but I don't see that because I feel like Garu's gotten less focus. And every series, not even just Toku, but every series is always going to have a central character or a set of central or semi-central characters that they choose to focus on, which honestly I'm fine with because it's an easier way to build narrative. So in Sentai in particular, it's always hard to get everybody even focused. But everyone on Kyuranger is pretty memorable in general. But I feel like Garu's gotten the least memorable focus. Because like even with some of the lesser focused on characters like Hammy or Sparta, I feel like their focus episodes gave me the gist of who they are. And I feel like I don't have that for Garu. Like all we've gotten for him is his debut. He was used as sort of a prop for Lucky a couple times, the cross-dressing episode, and then this was like the most he's gotten to do. And I just feel like I haven't really gotten the gist of his motivation and character other than he can be kind of crazy. So I hope that before the end of the series we get a solid Garu focus episode, because if I had to say a second least focus, I would maybe say Sparta. This is from my perspective, but we at least got an episode where I got a little bit of a grasp on who he is. So I just want that for Garu, and so I'm glad he's somewhat involved in this storyline, even though it's not really about him, which is what most of his focus is whenever he's front and center, is he's just kind of a figure in somebody else's storyline. So I hope he gets something more, and that just kind of reminded me in this episode. We also got a little bit of a look at, well not a little bit, we did get a look at how the new ship, you know, docks out Voyagers. That sounds a weird way of putting it, but you know, if you've seen the toy or my review or anyone's review or just know the toy, like you know how it works, but we got to see it in the show. Oh, something I wanted to point out. I really liked how in the first part of the battle we had Rangers fighting on the ground and then also a mecha battle, because I love when they change things up like that. It was one of my favorite things about Go Busters, is it wasn't always the predictable, like, fight on the ground, fight Megazord, fight on the ground, fight Megazord. I like that sometimes they would have people on the ground, people piloting, and we don't get that very often, so I appreciated that. And of course they had to have a second mecha battle so that they could show off Orion again and stuff like that, and like the little cannon formation, which is basically like a large-scale version of when they have a combiner weapon. But my point is I really like when they change up the order like that. Like, it was neat to see the two fights and finishers happening simultaneously. But anyway, I think that's about it for this episode. Overall, I thought it was very enjoyable. I would give it an 8.5. Next week looks like it might be more silly filler, but it could be deceptive where something important might happen. Like, it could be generally deceptive where it ends up being all over important, or it could be like a lot of silly and then like the last bit something important. But Kyurangers earned enough good faith that I know at least something is going on because they're headed to the system where Dawn lives, I believe, because what's his name? Smalance Magic School Bus Naga during this episode. Anyway, that's about it. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It's Dawson Ryder, signing out.